The notification chimed on my phone just as I was reviewing the final payment schedule for Marcus and Sarah's dream house. 47 years of marriage, 31 years of being a mother, and I thought I understood my family. The text message from my son would prove me catastrophically wrong. Mom about the cruise next week. You won't be joining us. Sarah prefers to keep it just family. Hope you understand. Thanks for everything. I stared at the screen, reading it 3 times before the words truly sank in. The cruise I had booked and paid for entirely. The cruise meant to celebrate Marcus's promotion and their new house. The house I had just finished paying for in full. My hands trembled slightly as I set the phone down on my mahogany desk. The home office felt suddenly cold despite the warm June afternoon streaming through the windows. Family photos lined the shelves. Marcus's graduation, his wedding to Sarah, vacations we'd taken together, birthdays, holidays. All of it felt like a lie now. Sarah prefers to keep it just family. The words echoed in my mind. After 47 years of marriage to Marcus's father, Robert, after being the one to walk Sarah down the aisle when her own mother refused to attend, after paying for their wedding, their cars, their education, and now their house, I wasn't family. I picked up the phone and called Marcus directly. It went to voicemail. Marcus, it's Mom. I just got your text. I think there might be some confusion. Call me back. An hour passed. No return call. I tried Sarah's number. Also voicemail. Sarah, it's Helen. I'm confused about Marcus's text regarding the cruise. Please call me so we can discuss this. Robert walked into my office around 5 o'clock. His silver hair catching the late afternoon light. After 47 years, I could read every expression on his face, but this one was new. Guilt mixed with defiance, topped with something that looked almost like relief. You got the text, he said. It wasn't a question. You knew about this. He sat down in the leather chair across from my desk, the same chair where we'd made so many family decisions together. Helen, we need to talk. I'm listening. Sarah has felt intimidated by you. She thinks you're too controlling, too involved in their lives. She asked if there was a way for them to have some space, some time as just their nuclear family. Intimidated. I felt my blood pressure rising. Robert, I paid for their entire wedding. I've been paying their student loans for 3 years. I just finished paying off their house yesterday. Yesterday. How is helping them controlling? She feels like she can't make decisions without your input, like you expect to be consulted on everything because you're helping financially. I've never asked to be consulted on anything. I've just helped when they needed it. Robert looked down at his hands. I thought maybe a cruise would be too much too soon. Just the 3 of them. The 3 of them. I repeated the words slowly. Robert, are you going on this cruise? The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. You're going. You're all going, and I'm the only one being excluded. Helen. 47 years, Robert. 47 years of marriage. And you're going on a family cruise without me because our daughter-in-law finds me intimidating. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking our backyard. The garden Robert and I had planted together 20 years ago was in full bloom. We'd made that garden as a legacy, something beautiful for our grandchildren to play in someday. I need some time to think, I said without turning around. Helen, please don't make this bigger than it is. It's just one cruise. Is it, Robert? Is it just one cruise? He didn't answer, and eventually I heard her leave the room. I spent the next several hours in my office, staring at the financial documents spread across my desk. The deed to Marcus and Sarah's house. The receipt for the cruise payments. The records of all the money I'd given them over the years. Not loaned, given. College tuition, wedding expenses, car payments, rent assistance, and finally the down payment and mortgage payments for their house. $243,000. That's what I'd spent on their life together over the past 6 years. At midnight, I made a decision that would change everything. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat in my home office with my laptop, calculator, and phone, making a series of calls and arrangements that would have seemed impossible just 24 hours earlier. First call, my lawyer David Chen, whom I woke up despite the late hour. Helen, is everything all right? It's past midnight. David, I need to know something. The house I bought for my son and daughter-in-law. Technically, who owns it? Well, you purchased it outright, so legally you're the owner. You never transferred the deed, remember? We discussed putting it in their names, but you said you wanted to wait until you were sure they were settled. Right. So I can sell it. Legally, yes, but Helen, how quickly? That depends on several factors. Is this about the situation with your family you mentioned last month? I had told David about some tensions with Sarah, how she seemed uncomfortable with Roberts and my involvement in their lives. I hadn't realized then how deep it ran. David, I need this house sold as quickly as possible. Price it to move. Helen, maybe you should wait until. No. I need this done now. Tomorrow morning I want it listed. After I hung up with David, I called my financial advisor, Janet Morrison. Janet, it's Helen Thornton. I need to liquidate some investments quickly. Mrs. Thornton, it's very late. Are you having an emergency? In a way, yes. I need access to liquid funds, and I need to cancel some recurring payments. What kind of payments? I looked at my list. Auto payments on 2 car loans, insurance policies I've been covering, and about $1,200 a month in various expenses I've been handling for my son and daughter-in-law. Ma, are you sure about this? These kinds of financial decisions. Janet, I'm 73 years old. I built my own business from nothing and sold it for $12 million. I think I can handle my own financial decisions. Of course, Ma. I just want to make sure you've thought this through. I've thought about nothing else all night. By morning the wheels were in motion. The house would be listed within 48 hours, priced for a quick sale. All automatic payments to Marcus and Sarah's accounts would stop by the end of the week. Their car payments, insurance, the small monthly allowance I'd been giving Sarah for household expenses. All of it cancelled. Robert found me in the kitchen at 6 a.m., making coffee with hands that were steadier than they'd been in hours. You didn't come to bed. I had work to do. Helen, about yesterday. When do you leave for the cruise? He studied my face. Tomorrow. I see. When do you get back? Saturday. That's 10 days. Yes. I poured my coffee and took a sip. That should be enough time. Enough time for what? I looked at my husband of 47 years, the man who had stood beside me through building my business, through the struggles and successes, through raising our son. The man who had chosen to go on a family cruise without me. To make some changes, Robert. Something in my tone must have alarmed him because his face went pale. What kind of changes? You'll see when you get back. He stood there for several more minutes, but I had nothing else to say. Eventually, he left to pack for his cruise. Marcus called around noon. Dad, Mom said you two had some kind of fight last night. Look, about the cruise. Marcus, let me ask you something. Do you remember when you were 12 and wanted to quit Little League because Coach Peterson was being too hard on you? Mom, what does that have to do with? Do you remember what I told you? You said that sometimes the most important lessons come from the hardest situations. That's right. Actions have consequences, son. Every choice we make ripples out and affect other people. Mom, you're scaring me. Is this about the cruise? Because if it's that important to you. No, Marcus. It's not about the cruise. It's about respect. It's about family. And it's about understanding that every choice has a consequence. I don't understand. You will. I hung up and spent the rest of the day making more calls. By evening, I had accomplished more than I had thought possible. The house listing was approved and would go live tomorrow morning. All financial support to Marcus and Sarah had been terminated. I had even made arrangements to have their utilities, which I'd been covering, transferred back to their responsibility. But I wasn't done. The morning after Robert, Marcus, and Sarah left for their family-only cruise, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in decades, I had no obligations to anyone but myself. David called around 10 a.m. Helen, I have to ask one more time. Are you absolutely certain about this? The house is beautiful, and you're pricing it $30,000 below market value. I want it sold, David. Not next month, not next week. I want it sold while they're gone. At this price, it'll probably sell within days. Perfect. By Wednesday we had 3 offers. By Friday we had accepted one, full asking price, cash buyer 30-day closing. The buyers were a young military couple being transferred to the area who needed to move in quickly. I spent the week doing something I hadn't done in years, taking care of myself. I went to the gym every morning, something Robert had always discouraged because he thought women of my age looked foolish exercising. I ate at restaurants I wanted to try, went to movies Robert would never have chosen, and visited old friends I hadn't seen in months because Robert found them boring. On Thursday I did something that surprised even me. I called my older brother Tom, whom I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. Helen. Jesus, it's been forever. How are you? I'm actually not sure, Tom. But I think I might be better than I've been in a long time. What's going on? I told him everything. The text, Robert's betrayal, the financial support I'd been providing, and my response. Tom was quiet for a long time. Helen. That's rough. I keep wondering if I'm overreacting. Are you kidding me? You've been funding their entire life, and they exclude you from a family cruise because you're too involved? That's rich. Robert thinks I'm being controlling. Robert's been making excuses for Marcus since he was 5 years old. Remember when he stole that money from your wallet for baseball cards? She said you were being too harsh for wanting him to pay it back. I'd forgotten about that, but Tom was right. It was a pattern I'd been too close to see. What are you going to do about Robert? Mask. I honestly don't know yet. Well, for what it's worth, I think you're handling this exactly right. Sometimes people need to learn what life looks like without the things they take for granted. Friday afternoon, something unexpected happened. Sarah's mother, Patricia, called me. Helen, I just heard about the cruise situation from Sarah. I wanted to apologize. Patricia, you don't need to apologize for anything. Yes, I do. What Sarah did is wrong, and I told her so. I know how much you've done for them, and excluding you from a family cruise that you paid for is just... it's inexcusable. I appreciate that, Patricia. I also heard that you canceled your financial support and listed their house for sale. News traveled fast apparently. That's correct. Good for you. I was surprised. Patricia had never been particularly warm toward me, though we'd gotten along well enough. Really? Helen, my daughter has been spoiled her entire life. First by her father and me, then by you and Robert, and now by Marcus, who just goes along with whatever she wants. She's 32 years old and has never faced a real consequence for anything. Maybe it's time she learned what the real world looks like. That's not exactly what I expected to hear from you. I know. But I've been watching this situation develop for months. Sarah complains constantly about feeling suffocated, but she's been perfectly happy to take your money. She can't have it both ways. After I hung up with Patricia, I felt validation I hadn't expected. Maybe I wasn't the villain in this story after all. Saturday morning, the day the cruise was supposed to return, I got a call from the real estate agent. Mrs. Thornton, I have excellent news. The closing has been accelerated. The buyers can close on Tuesday if you're willing. Tuesday. That's perfect. I have to ask, Ma, the timing of this sale seems very specific. Is everything all right? Everything is exactly as it should be. Saturday afternoon, I did something I'd been planning all week. I drove to Marcus and Sarah's house with a locksmith and had the locks changed. It was my house after all, and I wanted to make sure it was secure for the new owners. I also had movers come and pack up all of my belongings that had found their way into their house over the years. My tools in the garage, the furniture I'd contributed to their living room, even the television I'd bought them for Christmas. By evening, the house looked very different. Dear. More like what it would have looked like if they'd actually paid for it themselves. I went home and cooked myself a dinner Robert would never have allowed: steak, loaded baked potato, and a beer. I ate it on the back patio, watching the sunset over the garden Robert and I had built together. Tomorrow they would come home. I was in my office Sunday morning when my phone started ringing. First call was from Marcus at 9:47 a.m. "Mom, we're at the house and our key doesn't work. Did you have the locks changed?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because it's my house, Marcus. I own it." "Mom, what's going on?" "Our stuff is all over the lawn." I looked out my window. I couldn't see their house from here, but I could picture the scene. The movers had been very thorough. "Marcus, you need to understand something. When you sent me that text excluding me from the family cruise, you made a choice. Choices have consequences." "Mom, you're scaring me. Can we please talk about this in person?" "Of course. You're welcome to come over. But understand that I'm not your bank account anymore. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your safety net. If Sarah doesn't consider me family, then I won't act like I am." "Mom, please." Hung up. The next call came from Sarah at 10:15. "Helen, this is insane. Our furniture is sitting in the yard. People are driving by staring at us. Sarah, you told my son that you preferred to keep family events. Just family. I'm simply respecting your wishes. That's not what I meant, and you know it." "What did you mean exactly?" I wanted some space. Some time for just us to bond as a family unit." "I see. And how much space do you need, Sarah? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you need about $243,000 worth of space." "What?" "That's how much money I've given you and Marcus over the past 6 years. Money I'll never see again because I was investing in family. But since I'm apparently not family, I thought I should stop investing." The line went quiet. "Sarah, are you there? You can't just throw us out. We have rights." "Actually, you don't. The house is in my name. I own it. And it's sold." "What do you mean sold?" "I mean I sold it. Closing is Tuesday. You have 2 days to collect your belongings." I could hear her crying now. "This is crazy, Helen. Over one cruise. You're destroying our lives over one cruise." "No, Sarah. I'm not destroying anything. I'm just no longer building it for you." Helen called at 10:45. "Robert, what have you done?" "Hello, Robert. How was your cruise?" "Don't play games with me." Marcus and Sarah are sitting in my driveway crying. Their furniture is in garbage bags in the back of Marcus's truck. "That's unfortunate." "Helen, this has gone too far. Fix this. Now." "No." "What do you mean no?" "I mean no, Robert. I'm not fixing this. You made a choice. You chose to go on a family cruise without your wife. You chose to exclude me from my own family. These are the consequences of that choice." "It was 1 week, Helen. 1 week. Robert, in 47 years of marriage, how many times have you taken a vacation without me?" Silence. "How many times, Robert?" That's different. "How many times have you chosen someone else's comfort over your wife's feelings?" "Helen, you're being dramatic." "Am I?" "Let me ask you something else. When Sarah said she wanted a family-only cruise, why didn't you say, 'Helen is family'?" More silence. "Because you agreed with her, didn't you? You think I'm too controlling too. You think I'm too involved. You think our son and daughter-in-law would be better off without my interference. That's not what I think. Then why didn't you stand up for me?" I thought maybe you needed to learn to step back a little." "I see. Well, consider this me stepping all the way back." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done, Robert. I'm done being the family bank. I'm done being the problem solver. I'm done being the one who sacrifices his own wants and needs for everyone else's comfort. And I'm done being married to someone who doesn't think I'm worth defending." The silence stretched so long I thought he might have hung up. "Helen, you don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life." "You're talking about divorce. Over this." "I'm talking about 47 years of marriage where I've apparently been fooling myself about what family means." Helen, please. Come home. Let's talk about this. That house hasn't felt like home in a very long time, Robert. I think I'm finally ready to admit that. I hung up and turned off my phone. For the next 2 days, I ignored all calls and texts. I had my lawyer handle all communication about the house sale, and I spent my time doing something I hadn't done in decades, planning a life that was entirely my own. Tuesday morning, the house sale closed without incident. The young military couple was thrilled with their new home, and I was relieved to finally close that chapter. Tuesday afternoon, Marcus showed up at my door. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, defeated. "Mom, we need to talk. Come in." We sat in my living room, the same room where I'd taught him to play chess, where we'd watched football games, where we'd celebrated his acceptance to college. "Mom, I know you're angry, and I understand why. But Sarah and we don't know what to do. We can't afford rent and a car payment and insurance and all the other things you were helping with. We're staying with Dad, but his house only has 1 bedroom. That sounds challenging. Mom, please. I'm begging you. I know we screwed up, but we can't survive without your help. Marcus, let me tell you something that might help you understand my perspective. When you were 16, you wanted to quit your job at the grocery store because it was hard work and you didn't like your supervisor. I remember. I told you that you could quit, but you'd have to pay for your own car insurance and gas money. Do you remember what you said? I said that wasn't fair because other parents paid for those things. And what did I tell you? You said that other parents weren't raising me, and that I needed to learn that choices have consequences. That's right. You worked that job for 2 more years, and you learned valuable skills that helped you in college and beyond. This is the same principle, Marcus. Just on a much larger scale. But Mom, this is different. This could ruin our lives. No, son. This could change your lives. There's a difference. Marcus started crying then, something I hadn't seen since he was a child. Mom, I know we were wrong to exclude you from the cruise. It was Sarah's idea, but I should have stood up for you. I should have said no. Why didn't you? Because it's easier to go along with what Sarah wants than to fight about it. And how's that working out for you? He looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. It's not. Marcus, do you know how much money I've given you and Sarah over the past 6 years? A lot. Too much. $243,000. Do you know what I could have done with that money instead? I never asked you to. You didn't have to ask. I gave it freely because I love you and I wanted to help you build a life. But somewhere along the way, my help became an expectation. My generosity became an entitlement. And my love became something you could take for granted. Mom, I never took your love for granted. Didn't you? When you sent me that text excluding me from the cruise, what did you think would happen? Did you think I'd just accept it and move on? Did you think my feelings didn't matter? Did you think I'd always be here to fund your lives no matter how you treated me? Marcus was quiet for a long time. I guess I did think that. And why did you think that? Because you always have been. He nodded. That's the problem, isn't it? I've been so consistent in my support that you forgot it was a choice I was making, not an obligation I owed you. So what happens now? Now you learn to build a life without my financial support. You learn to make decisions based on what you can actually afford. You learn to have difficult conversations with your wife about money and priorities and what really matters. And what about us? Our relationship? That's up to you, Marcus. I'll always love you, you're my son. But I won't always fund you. Those days are over. Forever. I don't know. That depends on a lot of things. Like what? Like whether you can learn to appreciate what you have instead of expecting more. Like whether you can learn to consider other people's feelings before you make decisions. Like whether you can figure out how to be a husband and a man without using my money as a crutch. Marcus wiped his eyes with his sleeve. Mom, what about Dad? What about him? Are you really going to divorce him? Your father made a choice to exclude me from our family. He made a choice to prioritize Sarah's comfort over his wife's feelings. He made a choice to go on a family cruise without his wife. Those choices have consequences too. But 47 years. 47 years of marriage where I thought we were a team, and it turns out we're not. Your father doesn't see me as someone worth defending. He sees me as someone who needs to be managed and controlled. That's not true, isn't it? When's the last time your father stood up for me? When's the last time he chose my feelings over someone else's convenience? Marcus couldn't answer that question, and we both knew why. I need you to leave now, Marcus. I have some thinking to do. Mom, please. Go home to your wife and your father. Figure out how to build a life that doesn't depend on my bank account. And maybe someday we can rebuild a relationship that's based on mutual respect instead of financial dependence. After Marcus left, I sat in my quiet house and realized something profound. For the first time in decades, I felt free. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office finalizing my divorce papers when Robert called. Helen, I just got served. Are you really going through with this? Yes, Robert. After 47 years, you're throwing away our marriage over one cruise? Robert, it was never about the cruise. The cruise was just the moment I finally saw clearly. Saw what clearly? That I've been living with someone who doesn't respect me, doesn't value me, and doesn't consider my feelings when making decisions that affect our family. That's not true, isn't it? Robert, in the past month since you've been back, have you once apologized for excluding me? Have you once acknowledged that what you did was wrong? Silence. Have you once asked me how I felt or why I was hurt? More silence. Instead, you've spent a month telling me I'm overreacting, I'm being dramatic, I'm being unreasonable. You've spent a month trying to make me the villain for having feelings about being excluded from my own family. Helen, I just think. That's the problem, Robert. You think you know what's best for everyone. You think you know what I should feel, what I should accept, what I should be willing to tolerate. But you never ask me what I think or how I feel. We've been married for 47 years. I know you. No, Robert. You know the version of me that I became in order to keep peace in our marriage. You know the woman who always gave in, always compromised, always put everyone else's needs first. But you don't know who I really am. And who are you really? I'm someone who has opinions that matter. I'm someone whose feelings deserve consideration. I'm someone who won't accept being excluded from his own family because it makes someone else more comfortable. Helen, please. We can work through this. How, Robert? How do we work through 47 years of you not seeing me as an equal partner in our marriage? That's not. I don't see you that way. Then why didn't you defend me when Sarah said she wanted a family-only cruise? Because I thought maybe she had a point. The honesty of that statement hit like a physical blow. I see. And what point was that, exactly? That maybe you do get too involved sometimes. That maybe Marcus and Sarah need space to build their own marriage without so much input from us. From us. Or from me. From you, I guess. But not from you. You were included in the family cruise. You were part of the family that Sarah wanted to keep it to. That's different. How is it different, Robert? Because I don't get as involved in their finances and their decisions. You mean I'm the one who pays for things, so I'm the one who's too involved. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. Robert, let me ask you something. Do you think Marcus and Sarah would have excluded you from that cruise if you were the one paying for their house and their cars and their insurance? The long pause told me everything I needed to know. You know they wouldn't have, I continued. They excluded me because they've been taking my money while resenting my presence. And you let them because you agreed with them. Helen, I want to save our marriage. Then you should have thought about that before you chose to exclude me from our family. I hung up and turned back to David, who had been pretending not to listen to the conversation. Are you sure about this, Helen? I've never been more sure of anything. 2 months later, the divorce was final. Robert got half of everything, which was still more money than he could spend in 10 lifetimes. I kept the house and moved forward with plans I'd been making in secret. The first thing I did was something I dreamed about for years but never thought I could afford. I bought a cabin in Montana near Tom's ranch. A place where I could fish and read and think without anyone expecting anything from me. The second thing I did was reach out to Patricia, Sarah's mother. Patricia, it's Helen. I wanted to thank you for your support during all of this. Helen, how are you holding up? Better than I expected, actually. Listen, I have a proposition for you. I know you've been worried about Sarah and Marcus's financial situation. I have. They're struggling pretty badly. I'm going to offer them one last opportunity, but I want to run it past you first. What kind of opportunity? A chance to earn back some financial support, but on very different terms. I explained my plan to Patricia, and she was quiet for a long time. Helen, that's very generous. More generous than they deserve after how they treated you. Maybe. But I think it might be exactly what they need. I called Marcus on a Tuesday morning in October, 4 months after they'd returned from their cruise. Mom, I didn't expect to hear from you. Marcus, how are you and Sarah doing? We're surviving. It's been hard, but we're figuring it out. I heard you moved into that apartment complex near downtown. Yeah. It's not much, but it's what we can afford. And Sarah found a job. She's working at a dental office as a receptionist. It's not great money, but it helps. How do you feel about the changes in your life? Marcus was quiet for a moment. Honestly, Mom, it's been the hardest 4 months of my life. I think we needed it. What do you mean? I mean, Sarah and I had to have some real conversations about money and priorities and what we actually need versus what we want. We had to learn how to work as a team instead of just expecting things to work out. And we're stronger than we were before. Our marriage is stronger. We appreciate things more. We don't take things for granted the way we used to. I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. Hope. Marcus, I want to make you an offer. But before I do, I need you to understand that this isn't charity, and it's not going back to the way things were. I'm listening. I'm starting a foundation, a non-profit organization that helps families in crisis get back on their feet. Not by giving them money, but by teaching them skills and providing opportunities to earn their way to stability. That sounds amazing, Mom. I want to offer you and Sarah a chance to be part of building this organization. Sarah would coordinate services for families, connecting them with job training, budgeting classes, childcare resources. You would handle the financial side, working with families to create realistic budgets and financial plans. Mom, I don't know if we're qualified for. You're more qualified than you think. You've both learned what it's like to live on a budget, to make hard choices, to prioritize needs over wants. That experience is valuable. What would the salary be? Enough to live comfortably, but not enough to live extravagantly. Sarah would start at $40,000 a year, you'd start at $45,000. Health insurance, reasonable benefits, but no company car, no expense account, no extras. I could hear him discussing it with Sarah in the background. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. Why are you doing this? After everything that happened. Because I still love you, Marcus. And because I think you've learned something important these past few months. And because I think you and Sarah might be able to help other families avoid the mistakes you made. What mistakes? Taking generosity for granted. Expecting other people to fund your dreams without appreciating the sacrifice involved. Excluding people who love you because it's more convenient than having difficult conversations. Mom, I am so sorry about the cruise. I know we never properly apologized, but we were both so ashamed of how we treated you. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. So, if we took these jobs, what would our relationship be like? Professional? Personal? Both, I hope. But the professional part would have clear boundaries. I'd be your boss, but I wouldn't be your bank. If you want something you can't afford, you save for it or do without it like everyone else. And the personal part. We rebuild it slowly. Based on mutual respect instead of financial dependence. Sarah got on the phone then. Helen, it's Sarah. I owe you an enormous apology. Sarah, you don't. Yes, I do. I was wrong. I was selfish and ungrateful, and I treated you terribly. I've spent the past 4 months realizing how much you did for us and how little we appreciated it. Thank you, Sarah. The truth is, I was intimidated by you, but not for the reasons I told myself. I was intimidated because you were successful and generous, and I felt like I could never measure up to your expectations. But that was my problem, not yours. I appreciate your honesty, Sarah. I want to take the job, Helen. Both Marcus and I do. And I want to prove to you that we can be the kind of people who deserve your respect. You don't need to prove anything to me, Sarah. You need to prove it to yourselves. We agreed to meet the following week to discuss the details. After I hung up, I sat in my quiet house, the same house where this whole journey had started 6 months earlier, and realized that sometimes the most painful endings can lead to the most meaningful beginnings. The Thornton Family Foundation officially opened its doors in January, 8 months after the cruise that changed everything. We operated out of a modest office downtown, with a staff of 6 including Marcus and Sarah. Our first client was a single mother named Jennifer whose husband had left her with 3 children and massive debt. She reminded me of Sarah in some ways. Overwhelmed, defensive, quick to blame her circumstances on other people. But she also reminded me of myself at Marcus's age. Desperate for help but too proud to ask for it properly. Sarah worked with Jennifer for 3 months. She helped her apply for job training programs, connected her with childcare resources, and taught her how to create and stick to a budget. But more importantly, Sarah shared her own story. A year ago, my mother-in-law was paying for everything in our lives, Sarah told Jennifer during one of their sessions that I observed. Our house, our cars, our insurance, even our groceries sometimes. And I resented her for it because I felt like I owed her something I couldn't repay. What changed? Jennifer asked. She stopped paying for everything. Suddenly, we had to figure out how to survive on our own. It was terrifying at first, but it was also the best thing that ever happened to our marriage. How do you figure? Because we learned that we were stronger than we thought. We learned that we could take care of ourselves. We learned what really mattered and what was just stuff we thought we needed. I watched Sarah work with families over the following months and saw her transform from someone who took help for granted into someone who understood the dignity that comes from earning your own way. She had a gift for connecting with people who were struggling because she had struggled herself. Marcus proved equally valuable in his role. His experience with losing everything gave him credibility when he sat down with families to help them understand the reality of their financial situations. The hardest part, he told a young couple who reminded me of him and Sarah a year earlier, isn't learning to live on less money. It's learning to make decisions based on what you can actually afford instead of what you want or what other people have. By the end of our first year, the foundation had helped 43 families get back on their feet. Not by giving them money, but by teaching them skills and connecting them with resources and helping them understand that temporary help is different from permanent dependence. More importantly, Marcus and Sarah had transformed from people who took generosity for granted into people who understood its value. The call came on a Thursday evening in March, almost a full year after the divorce was finalized. Helen, it's Robert. I hadn't spoken to my ex-wife in 6 months. The last conversation had been about dividing some remaining assets, and it had been civil but cold. Hello, Robert. I wanted to call because I heard about the foundation from Patricia. She says Marcus and Sarah are doing wonderful work. They are. They've both grown tremendously. Helen, I owe you an apology. A real one this time. I set down the book I'd been reading and gave her my full attention. I've spent the past year thinking about everything that happened, and I finally understand what you were trying to tell me. What's that? That I chose convenience over loyalty. I chose avoiding conflict over defending my wife. I chose Sarah's comfort over your feelings, and I told myself it was because I was being diplomatic. Robert, please let me finish. I need to say this. Waited. You were right about everything. About Marcus and Sarah taking your generosity for granted. About me not standing up for you. About all of it. And the worst part is, I knew you were right even then, but I was too stubborn to admit it. Why are you telling me this now? Because I saw Marcus and Sarah at Patricia's birthday party last week, and they're different people than they were a year ago. They're confident in a way they never were before. They're grateful in a way they never were before. They talk about their work with such pride and purpose. They've learned to value what they've earned. Yes, and watching them I realized that what you did, as painful as it was the most loving thing anyone could have done for them. I felt tears I wasn't expecting. Robert, I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just wanted to be respected. I know. And you deserved respect. You deserved to be defended. You deserved to have your feelings considered. And I failed you completely. We were both quiet for a long time. Helen, I don't expect anything from you. I don't expect forgiveness or reconciliation or anything else. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what kind of woman I was married to, and I'm ashamed that it took losing you for me to see it clearly. Robert, I see now that you weren't controlling. You were generous. You weren't demanding. You were invested. You weren't interfering. You were loving. And I'm sorry it took me 47 years to understand the difference. After he hung up, I sat in my quiet house and cried for the first time since this whole ordeal began. Not tears of sadness, but tears of relief. The person I had loved for 47 years finally saw me clearly. I didn't know if that would change anything between us, but it changed something in me. 2 years after the cruise that started everything, I was having dinner with Marcus, Sarah, and their 6-month-old daughter Emma, in their modest but comfortable apartment. Mom, there's something we want to talk to you about, Marcus said as Sarah cleared the dinner dishes. I'm listening. We want to buy a house. I felt my chest tighten instinctively, old patterns of thought kicking in. Were they about to ask for money again? That's wonderful. Have you found something you like? We have. It's a small place about 10 minutes from here. 3 bedrooms, decent yard. Needs some work but nothing major. And you can afford it. Sarah sat back down and took Emma from Marcus. We can afford the mortgage payments, but we'd need to save for another 8 months to have enough for the down payment. I waited, knowing there was more. We wanted to ask if you'd consider lending us the down payment money, Marcus continued. Not giving it to us but lending it. We'd pay you back with interest over 5 years. I studied both of their faces. There was something different about this request compared to all the requests from before. They looked nervous but not desperate, hopeful but not entitled. Why don't you just wait 8 months and save the down payment yourselves? Because Emma's getting bigger, and this apartment is getting smaller, Sarah said. And because the house we want is priced below market value due to the work it needs. So it's a really good deal. If we wait 8 months, it'll be gone. And because we want to start building equity instead of paying rent, Marcus added. We've learned a lot about financial planning over the past 2 years. How much money are we talking about? $15,000. We'd pay you back $300 a month plus interest. First payment would be 90 days after closing to give us time to get settled. I looked at my granddaughter, who was gurgling happily in Sarah's arms, completely unaware that her future might hang on her grandmother's decision. Can you afford the $300 payments on top of your mortgage and other expenses? Yes, they said simultaneously. Sarah pulled out a folder. We put together a complete budget showing our income, all our expenses, and how the loan payments would fit in. I looked through their budget carefully. It was thorough, realistic, and showed they could indeed afford the loan payments while still maintaining their modest but comfortable lifestyle. This is very well done. Sarah put it together, Marcus said. She's gotten really good at this stuff through her work at the foundation. What happens if one of you loses your job? Yes. We have 6 months of expenses saved in our emergency fund, Sarah said. And if we both lost our jobs, we'd sell the house before we'd default on the loan to you. I believed them. These weren't the same people who had excluded me from a family cruise 2 years ago. These were responsible adults who understood the value of money and the importance of keeping commitments. I have one condition, I said finally. They looked nervous. If you're ever unable to make a payment for any reason, You call me immediately and we work out a solution together. No hiding problems. No hoping they'll go away on their own. Absolutely, Marcus said. Then yes, I'll lend you the money. Sarah started crying. Thank you, Helen. This means everything to us. Thank you for asking in the right way. For having a plan, for understanding that this is a loan, not a gift, for taking responsibility for paying it back. As I drove home that evening, I realized that the painful journey that started with a text message about a cruise had led to something I never expected. A family relationship based on mutual respect instead of financial dependence. Marcus and Sarah weren't the same people they'd been 2 years ago. They had learned the value of earning their own way, the importance of gratitude, and the difference between temporary help and permanent dependence. And I wasn't the same person either. I had learned that love without boundaries isn't really love. It's enabling. I had learned that generosity without respect is just another form of control. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let people experience the consequences of their choices. I'm writing this from the front porch of my cabin in Montana, where I spend half my time now. The other half I spend in town, working with a foundation that has grown to serve over 200 families a year. Marcus just called to tell me that they made their final loan payment. 3 months early. Mom, we did it. The house is completely ours now. How does it feel? It feels earned. It feels like something we actually accomplished instead of something that was handed to us. Sarah got on the phone. Helen, we want to have a barbecue next weekend to celebrate. Will you come? And before you ask, yes, you're definitely invited to this family celebration. I laughed. I'd be honored. Robert has started coming to some of these family gatherings. We're not back together. I don't think we ever will be. But we've found a way to be friends. He's learned to ask my opinion instead of assuming he knows what I think. I've learned to appreciate his positive qualities instead of focusing on his failures. Last month, Marcus told me something that made all the pain of the past 3 years worth it. Mom, Emma asked me yesterday why Grandma Helen doesn't live with Grandpa Robert like other grandparents. I told her that sometimes adults have to make hard decisions to protect what's most important to them. What did she say? She asked what was most important to you. I told her that respect and honesty and treating people the way they deserve to be treated was most important to you. Even when it's hard. What did she say to that? She said you sound like a good grandma. As I finish writing this story, I want anyone who reads it to understand something important. This was never about money. It was about respect. It was about boundaries. It was about refusing to accept being treated as less than you deserve to be treated, even by people you love. The cruise was just the catalyst. The real issue was a family dynamic where my love and generosity had been taken for granted for so long that excluding me from family events seemed reasonable to people who supposedly cared about me. Sometimes love requires saying no. Sometimes respect requires walking away. Sometimes the most generous thing you can do is stop being generous until people learn to value what they've been taking for granted. I lost a marriage, but I gained a son and daughter-in-law who truly appreciate me. I lost the illusion of a perfect family, but I gained a real family built on mutual respect and genuine gratitude. Most importantly, I learned that it's never too late to set boundaries, demand respect, and refuse to accept treatment that diminishes your dignity. The text message that started this journey said, "You won't be joining us on the cruise. My wife prefers to keep it just family." If I could send a message back to that version of myself reading those words for the first time, it would be simple. Thank you for showing me who you really are. It saved me from wasting any more years pretending we were a real family. 'Cause now, finally, we are.